So today we're going to go over what it looks like to apply to an event as an artist with our new design. And we're just going to go ahead and get started by logging in. So logging in is up in that right-hand corner now, and it brings you to this whole separate page. So we'll just log in as a new account. And it automatically loads to my ZAPPlications. This isn't really different as to what it did in the past, outside of the look, of course. My ZAPPlications has always been the hub and will continue to be the hub for all artist applications on ZAPP. So the first place we're going to start is just with some general artist information, since we're working with an already registered account and we're not going to go through that process today. I'm going to go through the profile and just kind of show you what's included in every artist account because it may impact the questions you choose to ask on your application. The majority of this information is automatically included when an artist applies, so you won't need to ask it twice. Obviously, you've got username, first name, last name, email, all of that information is available to you, as is the mailing address information. And when you come down here, you've got a quick little teams and associates question. Artists can change this at any time. If I choose to click team instead of I'm an individual, you saw this little bar lit up, so you can definitely go into that section as an artist if you go from being an individual to being a team. But we'll keep it as an individual right now. Same with associates. This section lights up if you have associates, and you can go ahead and add them there as an artist. And that information is, the team information is included in your end as well. Medium selection, this is not as important to you guys, but this is how we do basically our promotional stuff, and this is how artists can self-identify their medium category on their end. So if you're ever kind of curious about what medium categories we use on ZAPP, you can just create a free artist account and go ahead and check through there. If you ever get any questions about why they're getting email notifications, it's in their profile as well. They can either subscribe or unsubscribe to all. And the one little part I wanted to point out here that is something we get more consistent questions about as technology advances and more people are bringing phones with them and they have multiple phones or they have one main phone, all sorts of situations. And we have been getting more questions about these primary phone and alternate phones. So this is visible on your contacts report as an admin. But what we recommend is that you include a question on your application itself that asks for a phone number to reach them at the festival. You can also do this on your artist packet after your application as well. But it's just something to keep in mind that this information may not be exactly the number that they have when they're on the road, or it might not be the number that they will have access to. And we thought about possibly adding in another section here for that. But the issue around that is an artist might still have that number change. They might be traveling with a partner who is and they're using their phone number for the main contact line, sort of things like that can happen. So just as a kind of blanket recommendation right now, we do recommend asking that question itself. The other question we get asked about sometimes is, are your email addresses accurate? We do a quick bounce report every single business day, so Monday through Friday, that kind of goes through all the emails that have been sent in ZAPP, and we can see which ones have bounced. So we require email verification for accounts with emails that are bouncing because it's essential that that information is updated and current for you guys. So that is something you can definitely rely on, that email address. So if we're now pretending to be an artist, the first thing that we're going to want to do is locate an event to apply to, in the assumption that we're not here to apply to one specific event right off the bat. So there are three main ways that an artist can locate an event on ZAPP itself. The first is going to be apply to shows, the second is going to be the events calendar, and the third is going to be the events listing. So the main one that we really use the most is going to be apply to shows when we're looking at a listing of events. So you'll come to this page. We've made the search and sort results a bit more obvious up at the top because in the past iterations of ZAPP, it wasn't always clear that artists could do this basically advanced search. You just sort of click this filter over, and now I have the ability to search by event name, by state, by event month, the deadline month, and region, event type. All of these were available before, but artists didn't necessarily click over and see it because it was kind of this smaller green link. So we kind of fixed that. The artists have more of a chance to do that. You have an ambulance going by. And you also, as an artist, I have the ability to combine some of these. So I can choose to search for an event that's in Colorado with a deadline date, deadline month of essentially this month, maybe if I'm looking for that. Or if I'm filling a schedule, a summer schedule, maybe I know that I'm going to want an event in Colorado and I have a free weekend in July. So I can select a state, the state, and then the event month, and then hit go, and we can see if anything comes up. I'm sure it will. So we have all of these festivals that I could then apply to. So that's kind of what's happening over in this search feature. So it just makes it a bit more easy. Click reset to bring us all the way back to no filters. Keyword is a really clear one. It's just kind of like search by event name. It will also bring up, if you search a location, you can search for a location that will populate with anybody who has written that, they're in, for example, Chicago, Illinois. Sort results, again, another really easy way to do it. I know a lot of artists will search by deadline, so maybe they'll choose a specific filter, and then they'll search that filter by deadline to make sure that they're not missing any that they would be interested in with the most immediate deadline. Favorite events went from being a checkbox to a heart, which is just a more generalized symbol across the internet. So as an artist, if I'm logged in, and only if I'm logged in, I will be able to click that little heart and favorite the event. And I can click this over and show favorites only. The really cool thing about showing favorites only is if there are events that truly are my favorite, I go to them year after year after year as an artist, the favorite will always go over year after year. So if you guys have an artist who favorites your event this year and you renew your event, it will stay in their favorites. So if your 2020 event is in their favorites, so will your 2021 be, unless they choose to unfavorite it. So that's kind of the coolest thing about favorite events. Again, it's only available to logged in artists because that's how we store information. It's account specific. So the second way that you can kind of look through events on ZAPP is going to be this events list. It is one of the primary sections on non-logged in, public facing ZAPP. So that's kind of where a lot of artists or, prospective ZAPP artists are looking at events because this is the public page. You may be a little bit unsure what this list is now because it used to actually be called participating events. So when we redesigned the site, one of the interesting things that happened was all of a sudden something we thought that, people had been using for years, participating events, that main page, people were no longer finding that page the same way. So we renamed it to events list to make it a bit more clear that this is a list of all the events on ZAPP. And if you're logged in, it will also redirect you to apply to shows if you want to just see a select number of these. So biggest difference stays the same. Events list is all the events on ZAPP that are not editing the application. Apply to shows is all the events that have a open application. So the biggest difference is you can see it kind of over here. You could see the total events over here was 789. Total events on apply to shows is 200 and something, I believe. It might be different now because we're in a bigger application period. Yeah, 381. So that's kind of another place that artists can see. And a lot of the redesign that took place with events list and apply to shows was about making things a little bit more clear. And we are working on a series of enhancements to make these pages fit a few more applications on each side. The reason they're a bit bigger than they used to be is mostly accessibility purposes, and we wanted to add a bit more information that artists had requested over the years to make it a little bit more apparent immediately when an event was taking place, when the deadline was, what the fee is. But yeah, so this particular page layout will change slightly, but it will just become a little bit more compact. Now we're going to go to the events calendar, which has changed a bit since we first launched the new site. So when we originally launched it, it just had the compact view. which kind of shows overall activity. Blue dots are event start dates, green dots are accepting application dates, and red dots are application deadlines. So it's more about the activity on ZAPP. The full view shows all of the events, and then it's color-coded based off of what exactly the deadline is. So whether or not that's all these green accept applications dates. As you can see, a lot of people went live and started accepting applications today. And then same goes for all the other ones. So red, there's your event deadlines, and blue would be event start dates. So artists use this view more for planning and to see what is happening in each month so that they can see that. Basically, it's a way to see the events list and the apply to shows list in more of a calendar format when you're in the full view. The only thing I will say about the full view is that it's only available on desktop devices. It just doesn't, we looked at a lot of different options to see if it would work on mobile devices, to see if having a list of events would work, but it just wasn't possible. There'd be a lot of scrolling, it wouldn't really fit. So the compact view is what you'll get if you are on a phone, but if you are on a desktop, you'll have access to the full view as an artist. Search and filter options are pretty similar to what they are on the events list and apply to shows list. And you'll see them on the side if you're compact, or on top if you are not. The other thing about this page that's new is now if you have selected a date, you can go ahead and scroll down and take a look at some of these events. And you can see their event descriptions by saying read more. So we call these our event cards, and they just give the details that you can find on apply to shows and events list. And that is something that was not available to artists before the redesign. So we're pretty excited about that. The other cool thing about these and what was happening on the apply show and event list pages is that we now also have days to deadline so that artists can get a really quick snapshot of how long exactly they have. So do you have 2 months or do you have longer? These days to deadline just help keep that all super clear. Clicking more event info or the title will still bring artists to your event page itself. So now that I'm an artist, I do know which one we're gonna apply to just because we're gonna apply to a demo event. We're gonna go ahead and apply to this Lilac Festival. So I went ahead and I knew the name, so I could just search it in there. It brought it up really quickly. And we'll just click on that. So if I'm an artist going through this and maybe I don't know as much about this event, I'm definitely going to look through all of this information. This is the layout that artists will see now at the top. You've got your event dates, application deadline, and time remaining before the application deadline, all at the top with these little icons now. That's new, as are the images, all of this information being pulled to the top and super clear. That's pretty new. You can see that I've already applied to this show, so it lists the application right here. In the previous version of ZAPP, if you had already applied to the show, you wouldn't know that until you clicked apply to show, and then before you could accept the legal agreement, it said you've started an application or you have an application. Now we have kind of a way to see that right at the top with all of this information here. I also have the ability to favorite the event on this page, so we'll go ahead and do that. If I can click on it, there we go. So now that we're looking at this, the biggest difference on this page is just going to be that you have these buttons that you can drop down. And jury details is now an actual section. It's no longer a pop-up link. It's an actual section we can go to that's just pulled down here. And so artists can see that on this page as part of your event perspective. If you're on a mobile device, there will be an arrow at the side, kind of in this lower right-hand corner, that jumps you back to the top. So as an artist, now let's say I've read through all of this, everything looks good, and I'm at the bottom. I can either view the legal agreement, I can view the event sitemap, which is just a random document, or I can apply to this show. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. I will again see that I have an application that is in received. This is similar to how it was in the old ZAPP. Only difference is it used to be bright red in the old ZAPP. Now it's just separated out with this language that says, hey, you've already applied, but you can apply again. So I'm going to go ahead and apply again. Going to get another warning. And so I am now ready to start my application. So as an artist, I'm just going to review this really fast. So I'm just looking at it, and I can come down here and I can see what the requirements are. I could also see what the requirements are on the other page, but I can just kind of take a look and say, okay, I have 200 characters for the description of materials and techniques, and I need 4 images with 1 booth shot, which is it right here. So let's say I didn't have that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go and I'm going to click this Upload New Images, and it's going to take me to my portfolio. So what we've got here is a redesigned portfolio page just to make things a little bit more clear. Again, you'll have the option to sort of, you'll see the requirements up here at the top. You have the option to click the image preparation guidelines. So if I click this as an artist, I'm going to come here and I'm going to see, oh, here's the minimum requirements. Here's the recommended requirements. All of this is updated for the new ZAPP. So all these links work and everything. So we have this storage limit off to the side. It used to be on the top, but now it's more with the images. So you can kind of see as an artist, oh, how much I've used. We've had one artist ever make it all the way to the end and use all of their storage. So I will be able to see my portfolio here, and then I also can toggle this to see my statements of technique. So we've called this now statements of technique on the artist side as well, so these match up really well. That is a change. It used to be called artist statement. Now they're both called statement of technique. So if I was looking at my images and I was thinking, okay, one of these images isn't good for, I only have 3 images that I think is good for applying to this festival. To kind of go to the next, to upload a piece of new media, I'm going to click Upload Media. I'm going to keep it as booth shot as no. I'd have the ability to choose a file, name the image, enter all of this information. All this information shows up on your side in both the image if you click on it, and it will show up on the juror side if you decide to turn it on. Artists can also select their own medium category in here. If it's a booth shot, I'm just going to toggle this over, and it's going to collapse the rest of it. I'm going to hit submit when I'm done, but I'm not going to upload another image right now. We're just going to hit back. And then within this itself, now booth shots are labeled with a star that says booth shot. So it makes it a little bit more clear on the artist side. Hopefully we get a little bit fewer questions about have I uploaded a booth shot? And what does a booth shot look like on ZAPP? So looks like a star. So now I do know though that my statement of technique is the one I have saved is 1,000 characters, and I want one that's 200 characters. We'll pretend this. So if this one is 1,000, I'm going to hit copy. And then I can click in here and select edit. And maybe I could just, take this to a total of 200. And we're going to call this one my statement of technique for 200 characters. And that's kind of a really easy way for artists to manage this process. Really, this page just looks nicer. All of this was doable before. And so I've sort of changed that to 200. I know this fits. We're good. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go ahead and go back now to my ZAPPlications, which is where, since I've started this application, I will be able to see it. So this is what the event card is going to look like on my ZAPPlications. New things happening here is mainly that the deadline within 7 days is bright red. And these buttons look more like buttons. So they used to be links off to the side, kind of imagine, a bunch of columns. Now everything is a little bit more centralized. I also can see here that I have 2 days until the deadline. I have the option to remove this application if I don't want to submit it, but I personally do. So I'm just going to go ahead and click complete. And go here. So now we'll just choose now we'll just go through and work on the application now that we have all of the materials that we need to actually submit an application. So I'll go ahead and choose my 200 statement of technique section. It just is that little insert button. We can go ahead and type in a favorite food. So again, all bold questions are required. These little blue question marks are your new help links. So in ZAPP, you can create help essentially for every question that you create. So if you have done that, then it will show up as a little question mark. It used to show up as a little green, light green help link itself. which doesn't really meet accessibility standards, so we changed it to this dark blue question mark. So now we have that little pop-up. We can change that. Now the price range question if you're curious. And then I have a quick little booth shot one. So you can also see that I've used every question type in here. I have a description question type. I've chosen 100 characters maximum for that. So as an artist, that's all I could answer. I have chosen a single select radio button, a drop down, and the checkbox, which allows multiple answers. And this here is what an informational only question will look like. So a lot of times if you're an admin and you have something about the artwork itself you really want to make sure artists are aware of, then that's a really good place to put an informational question and make it be last in your application questions, because they won't be able to say anything, but they will see it right before they go to select their samples. So before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and hit save and continue. I'll get this little success pop up in the corner. Just like on admin, we recommend saving every 20 minutes, just for the sake of saving and not losing your work. So the section where you select your samples is pretty different than what has been in the past. So what I'm going to do is I can click on the image itself. The order that I click in will be the order that it's viewed in the jury. If I want to change the order, I can just unclick something and click it back in. That will switch up my order up here. And I will be able to see my selected samples all alone. In the past, these were kind of one section and you wouldn't be able to see them like up here alone. So I think that's pretty nice. And then if I wanted to go back and edit something, I would click on this link itself. So in the past, if you clicked on the picture of the image as an artist, it would take you back to your portfolio. If I clicked on the link itself, if I click on the link itself, then that takes me to my portfolio here. So that's the big difference there. Just makes it a little bit less accident prone. For good reason, it was accident prone. There we go. So yep, so that's all the information you'll have. And then this other button that people are still a little bit, it used to be there on the old ZAPP as well, but it's just an underutilized feature that we really like. It's called image submission history. So I can see the submissions I have made in the past. So I can see that I've made one application submission with this particular account on September 19th. So I can see exactly what I did then. And that's nice. So once I'm done here, I'm going to save and preview. And I'll be brought to this page. So this looks pretty much exactly the same as it did in the past, just with the new, color scheme and size of text, which meets more accessibility standards. And then I have the option to, of course, edit my application or preview as juror. So preview as juror is something that is available to artists who are on desktop devices. So obviously we encourage artists to apply to shows on desktop devices. It just encourages more like higher quality images, so you're not uploading them just directly from your phone. It encourages more time taken to do it. It's just one of those things where the majority of artists, when they are applying, they're applying on their desktop. But one of the things about that is that if you are not on your desktop, this preview window can't open. So if an artist is on a mobile device, they won't have the ability to preview as a juror. But if they're on desktop, totally able to. They're also able to, just save their application on their mobile device and then go to a desktop and preview as a juror. So as an artist, I can see everything one of your jurors, if you're holding a monitor jury, would see. So I have the ability to zoom in on an image and see it that way. I have the ability to pop this little information up and see what would be available if you as the admin chose to include all of this information for your jurors. And then I can kind of go to the next images like that. Kind of what preview as a juror is going to look like. So now we're kind of ready to check out. I've looked through my application. I've decided that, yep, this is what I want to submit. I like how it looks. I've looked at it as a juror, still like how it looks. And so if I just select checkout, we'll go right to the ZAPP shop. And we'll see in here that my cart already has this application entered in it. So if I were to have gone back and then gone through the ZAPPlications and then looked at it and noticed I had it. So if I had gone to my ZAPPlications and I had looked at it and noticed, hey, it's still ready for submission, if I just went to my cart and I had never clicked that checkout button, you can also click it here. If I had just gone directly to my cart, it might not automatically be added in my cart, but it'll be in the shop and I can add it there. Same goes for if I empty my cart, then I'll need to re-add it back in. And that's how you do that. You just click the little green cart add button. So ZAPP Shop is probably one of the most changed pages on the entire site. It used to be that each one of these steps occupied a different page. So as you clicked on to the next step and clicked review cart and all of that, you would be redirected to a different URL and you'd be moving through multiple pages and it would be a much more complicated process. So we've sort of streamlined it so it's all on one page. The other cool thing about it being all on one page is that I can then also just like skip to the last step. If I know that I'm just checking out an application fee, I can't purchase 2 application fees for one application. And if I know that I don't have any coupons, I can just click on step 4 payment information and get going right there. So that's a really cool thing that this new ZAPP Shop allows you to do that was not possible in the past iterations of ZAPP. So if I'm an artist though and I just want to go through every step just to verify, I can see my card over here the whole time, but I can click next step and then I can see here, oh, this is the late application fee. If I had multiple items in my cart, I could choose at this moment to delete another item and just move forward if I didn't want both of them in there. But everything looks good to me, so I'm going to go to next step. I do have a coupon for this application. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 50% off coupon. And it'll show up right there. So in the previous version of ZAPP, you'd have an option to sort of enter it in a box like this in around step 3 as well. But you'd also have the option through like a tiny green link over in the cart to add one. This just kind of makes it really clear that, hey, step 3 is where you add coupons. You're welcome to skip that step if you don't have any coupons. But if you do, this is where you add it. You don't have to worry that, you're not adding it. So once we've done that, everything looks good. The coupon worked. Yay. I'm going to go ahead and go to payment information. So depending on how you set up your event, artists may not have the option to pay by both check and credit card. If I had allowed only one type of payment, this would just automatically default to that. If the application was free, it would just say checkout free item. And it would say no payment necessary under payment type. So if we're looking at a credit card and PayPal, you need to just select credit card / PayPal and then click it. And then it will kind of open this here. So if you haven't joined us in a webinar for a while and you haven't been reading all of our updates, you might not know that we changed in June to a new section of PayPal called Braintree, which allows artists to save payment types. It's more secure. PayPal was really encouraging us to move to Braintree, so we went ahead and did that. So if I'm an artist, I will then see this little window, which is something that is pulled in from that service. If I want to pay by card, I'll enter it here. I also have an option to choose another way to pay. I could choose PayPal, and it would open up a window, log into my PayPal account and pay that way. Both PayPal accounts and credit cards can be saved in ZAPP, and they can also be deleted if they'd like. They can just sort of cancel that method of payment and say, hey, no, don't want that saved from here on out. So we're going to go ahead and we're, because this is just a test event, we're just going to pay with a check. So I got to go back to payment information and reselect my payment type. If I had multiple items in my cart, how this would kind of work would be that, I need to go, if I paid, 3 items with a credit card and I needed to pay 1 item with a check, I would finish paying with a credit card, then go back to step 4 payment information and pay with a check. And that item would still be in my cart. So once I click pay with a check, it looks pretty similar to how it did last time, just sort of looks a little nicer. We'll just put in a check number. I can add a note here. I know we've talked about it in the past, but notes are still something that you guys can download. If you want booth requests to go through notes, you can definitely do that. You just need to instruct artists where it is, or you can reach out to us and we can give you instructions as to how to tell artists where the notes section is. But this is where it lives. And it also exists if you're paying by credit card. So once we're done there, we can submit the check payment, and it automatically opens up a receipt right here. I can print this receipt right here. I can take a screenshot of it. It also sends it to my email, and it also goes to my ZAPPlication. So how payments look on my ZAPPlications is basically they look exactly like that. So they have this little payments thing, and then you just click on it, and it brings up the receipt again with that option to print, and it exists on ZAPP. So there's always a way for artists to verify. They have those 3 methods of verification. It's similar to how it was before. It just looks a little bit different on my ZAPPlications where it lives. But that's pretty much the only difference. And it's very clearly next to payments. But if artists ever have any questions about that sort of thing, it is definitely something that we can help them with. We're here for technical support. We don't expect you guys to do really intense technical support outside of maybe like correctly link our site if you want for artists to apply there. So that kind of brings us to the end of our applying to a show. We've done it. And so now this status is awaiting payment by check because I chose to submit a check payment. So as an admin, I would have to go in and move this person to received as soon as I received that payment. I'd also probably want to mark their check as received so that I know as an admin that all of the sort of boxes are ticked and I can run revenue reports really easily from ZAPP that way. I did get a few questions just about applying to a show and show management in general. So the first one I got was, can artists see what status we have put them in, and if so, what does it look like on their end? For example, if I put an application in other, do they get notified? Can they see that status if they search, or is the status hidden from them completely? This question is particularly about the other status. So other does not show up as anything but received. So other shows up as received, and reviewed shows up as received. So if we're looking at statuses that artists mainly see, they'll see started and ready for submission, which are 2 statuses that you guys won't see. And then they'll see awaiting payment by check and received. And then they'll also see if they're exempt from jury, if they're waitlist, if they're declined, if they've declined an application, if they're not invited, if they're invited, if they've accepted that application, and if they're confirmed. So really it's just reviewed and other. Those are the 2 categories they can't see. So if you are reviewing applications, it's perfectly good to put them in reviewed. If you have an issue with some applications, other is probably the category you'll want to look at more. If you're withdrawing someone, they'll also see that on there. So that's usually both people decide, or the artist reaches out to you and withdraws one of their applications. The second question I got was, can we, ZAPP, add social media links for artists so that they can share our sites with us? That is something that we are interested in doing in the future, but since we don't have that capability right now, we really just recommend adding questions for each of those. If you want to collect social media sites, that's great. It's a great way to connect with artists and to keep them connected in your event throughout the years. We see really good return on if people are connected to an organization via social media. A lot of, this is for every industry, not just art festivals, but if a person is connected to social media and connected to a brand on social media, they are more likely to buy from them, go to their events, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a really good thing to do, but you'll have to add those questions. I would recommend adding them as description questions that are optional in your event perspective. So actually, our Artist Spotlight does this because this is how we show artists art on social media on our end. So how we've kind of done this is a Facebook handle if you have a business page, Twitter handle, and Instagram handle. And then we just pull that information when we want to reach out to them. So thank you so much for joining, and you're welcome to reach out to us at any time. And I hope you'll join us for future webinars.